Hello and welcome to the Provider and Landlord Portal webinar. This webinar is geared towards social service provider agencies, support coordinators, and landlords who are working with the Supportive Housing Connection or SHC program. My name is Katie Nosker, and I am the manager of the SHC. I am joined today by Kathy Boland of the Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services and Courtney Davey of the Division of Developmental Disabilities. I want to let you know that we are recording this webinar. After it's completed, we will be posting the webinar online and sending it around to all invitees so that if anybody missed the presentation, they can catch up on what they missed. We're thrilled today to unveil the landlord and provider portals and announce that they are going live as of this presentation. In this presentation, I'll walk you through how to log in, view information about your tenants, download forms, and securely submit information to the SHC. Your individualized login was sent out with the invitation to this webinar. The information that we'll be showing you today in this webinar is just demonstration demo data only. It's not real or live or accurate. We're just using it to show you the kinds of information that would be available through the portals. So first what will happen is I will walk you through the landlord portal. Then Kathy, Courtney, and I will answer your questions. Then we'll move on to the provider portal and we'll have another Q&A session after that. If you would like to submit any questions, I believe we have everybody here on mute. So you'll have to type your questions in to the questions area at the bottom right-hand portion of your screen. So let's begin. First, again, we're starting with the landlord portal. And so when you first come to the landlord portal screen, this is what you'll see. What you'll want to do first is set up a new user registration. So that link is right down here. You'll click that button. And you'll be taken to a screen where you need to type in your vendor number. Now this is something that the SHC will have sent you with the invitation to this webinar. It's a unique ID and unique to the SHC. This number is also sent out every time you guys receive a HAP statement. So that vendor number is listed there. So if you ever forget, those come with every payment run. So you can always refer back to that. Next, you need to enter in your tax ID number. That's something that the landlord or vendor would have provided to the SHC, so you guys should have that on file as well. You would enter in your email address, retype your email address just for security, and then create your own password. Now, the system is smart enough to give you a little bit of guidance. So just so you're aware, the password has to include 8 characters, including uppercase, lowercase, and at least one number has to be included in your password. And this guidance will pop up to show you exactly what you need to put in. And then you'll retype that password. Then you'll hit register. I'm not going to do that now because I've already registered for a test landlord here, but that's how you would sign up as a brand new landlord to the system. I also want to note that there is no limit to the number of unique users that can log in to a landlord portal. So as long as there is a unique email address, you can have a bunch of different people can log in and see this information. So let's say you have somebody in your accounting department or maybe a couple of people in your accounting department who want to be able to log in, and then maybe you have a few other people from the management side of your company who want to be able to log in and maybe see information about where we have the tenants living or inspections or something like that. So as long as these folks have different email addresses, they can each create their own login account. So it's not like you have to have one login for your whole organization. All right, so again, you would click register, but here I'll just click cancel. So I also, before we get into it, I do want to draw your attention to this forgot password button right here. So if you know that you have registered and for some reason you've either forgotten your password or something's not working, you're not getting in correctly, you'll want to fill in your vendor number and the email address and then click the forgot password button. The system will be smart enough to send an email to your account with a new password. Once they do that, my recommendation is to copy that password and paste it in here. Frequently, these passwords are not, nice, easy words that you can remember. They're usually some combination of, letters and symbols. So it's often just easier to copy what they give you, enter that in here, and then it will prompt you to set up a brand new password that you can write down and remember. So once you're set up and have an account, you can log in. So I'm going to log in here as the test vendor that we have. Needs to be an email address. And then I'll put in my password. And we'll click login. Okay, so now we're taken to the main home screen of the Landlord portal. And you'll see that here we have some information about the vendor. So this would be information that you've provided to us at the SHC. We've got your vendor name here. We have Test Landlord. If this organization has opted for paperless delivery, that'll show as checked here. We have this particular one that we've set up has opted for direct deposit, and we have bank account and routing information. Again, this is test data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but this would be based on a voided check that you have sent to us. Here we have the Test Landlord as listed as the payee. And this information is really critical because here at the SHC we get a lot of questions about with folks wondering where their money went. They say, I know I signed up for direct deposit, but I've got a couple of bank accounts and I just don't remember where this one is slated to go. So certainly you can always call and ask the SHC, but the nice part about this portal is that, anytime, day or night, 24/7, you can log in and see that information for yourself. So if it's 10 o'clock on Sunday night and you just want to, finish up some billing or make sure you've gotten in everything that you need, you can log in and see this information for yourself. We also show here some limited portion of the tax ID number that we would have on file for you. If we are reporting a 1099, that will be shown here. The type of 1099, in this case rents, would be shown as well. We also have a couple of spaces here for contacts. The company address should match exactly what you have on your W-9, and the remit to would be where we send information. And if as a vendor you have opted not to select direct deposit, this is where we would be sending any checks. So that's also really good to know. If you want to just make sure that we're sending it to the right place, you can always check here. And again, if you just hover your mouse over this little address icon, you'll see that information pops up for you, so you can see all the information that we have in that particular section. All right, so moving down the screen, we get to a couple of exciting pieces of data that you'll now have available. So the first piece here is this transaction history. And what this shows is all of the transactions, all of the payments that have been made by the subsidy portion to this vendor. And again, this is test data, but there are a number of ways to sort this data. You can sort or search by date. So let's say you want to know what happened on, let's say, 11/1/15. If you type that in and hit enter in this section right up here, it's thinking a little bit, so we're going to hope that it shows up in just a sec. But it should sort and find that information for you. There we go. So we can see exactly what happened on 11/1/15, and obviously you can choose whatever date it is that you want to search for. You can also search by tenant. So let's say you want to know a particular tenant. You can type that name in here, Brian, and you would hit enter, and you'd find all the Brians that we have on file for you and what's happened with their payments. All right, so down here we get into some forms. So the first side over here on the left are these vendor forms that we have, and these are blank fillable forms for you to fill out. One example is this W9. So you'll see that it has a blue link where we can hit download. So I'll do that right now. And hopefully that will come through. There we go. So here we have a fillable W9 form. Let me scroll to the top here. So you'll see that you can start typing in this information. So we've done this to make it easier for you. Now I wish that we were able to just allow you to hit submit after you fill out something like this, but unfortunately we still do need for this to be printed out and for there to be an actual signature here as well as a date. So this will still make it a little bit easier. You can print it out, but it still has to be scanned in and submitted to the SHC. Let me close that there. And it works the same for the HAP agreement and the SHC addendum. So these will always be available to you. If you need to submit them for a new tenant that's coming on board or something like that, these forms will be available to you at your convenience. Now, one of my favorite portions of both the landlord and the provider portal is the ability to securely submit information to the SHC. And I really want to emphasize that these portals are an actual view into our system. So it's not like we make a change and then 3 days later it appears on this portal. This is an actual, more or less live view into our system. You know, maybe there's a couple-minute delay, but as we do things, as we make changes, as we import new tenants, all of that information appears here. So again, this is the portion where you can actually submit information to us. So you'll see that there are a number of documents listed here, and there's a download and an upload portion. So you'll notice that the upload portion, all of these items here are kind of grayed out, and I can't click on them, right? So I'm going through, I cannot click on them. The most important piece to remember about this is that you have to choose a staff member that you want to notify about this. So for demonstration purposes, I'll choose Shakan Cruz. And once you choose a person to send this to, you'll see that all of these upload buttons now become blue and you can click on them. So what will happen is we will submit a test document and Shakan will get an email in real time. So you can know that whenever you submit something through the portal to us, an email goes directly to a staff member here at the SHC, and it goes to the person that you have designated. So let's try it. So we have space for a HAP agreement here. So let's click the Upload New button. All right. So now we are prompted to go kind of find that document on the computer. So you hit Select, and I've set up just a test document to try. But obviously, you know, whatever it is that you wanted to submit, you could do that. So I'll click here and open. This is my test. And you'll see that it shows up here with a little green dot, and it says Test for Upload. Now, if I were to look at this and say, oh gosh, you know, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to choose another document. You could click Remove here, and it would go away, and you could choose another file to upload. But this is the document that I'd intended to upload. So let me hit Submit here. And when you see this bar, that means it's thinking. And here we have a little pop-up that says the document upload was successful. So you can treat this as a confirmation. This means that that document went correctly into our system, and it actually files it away for you guys and for us as well. So I'm just going to click OK. Now, a lot of times we get questions where people will say, you know, hey, I submitted something, but I'm not sure if you have it. Can you confirm if you have it? So now with this portal, first of all, you'll get a notice that says, you know, that little pop-up that says, you know, your upload was successful. And the next thing you can do if you're still not sure, let's say you want to verify, you want to download, you want to see that that document is in our system. You can actually download that right here by clicking this button right here, this Download Most Recent. And this will open up. And here we go. This is my test for upload. So you can be sure in 2 different ways that the documents you submit have indeed been received by the SHC. We also have some other information in here with check stubs, direct deposit information, so that you can see exactly what has been submitted to the SHC and what files we have for you. All right, now before I leave this page, I just want to draw your attention to this piece over here, this vendor sites piece. This particular test vendor we did not set up with any vendor sites, but there are some landlords where this makes a lot of sense. So let's say we have a big management company and maybe you have properties in Newark, Camden, and Trenton. And instead of having all of the checks go to, let's say, the main office that's in Trenton, you may want all the payments for the Camden properties to go to an address in Camden, and all the payments for the addresses up in Newark to go to a Newark address. That would be the sort of scenario where we would set up vendor sites. And that would have different payment information for each one, and you'd be able to look through each with all this kind of information to see what we have on file for those different vendor sites. So if there are ever any questions, if anything comes up, you can check on that yourself at your convenience. So the next piece about this portal is the ability to view information about the units that you have with the SHC. You can click right here on this View Units item, and we've set up just one tenant with this particular vendor. So I'm going to click here, but if we had had multiple, you would see all the units listed there. So we have our Brian test, and you'll see we have a unit number here, we have a tenant number, the total monthly rent that we have for the system for this tenant. We also have the tenant's address. So if you hover your mouse over here, and you can also just see it right there as well. I'll just go down the line here. So you'll see that we have some inspection information. So I'll let you know right now that this piece is not up to date yet, but we are very excited that we should hopefully have that coming soon. Once that is fully operational, what you'll be able to see are scheduled inspections and any inspection results. So what happens here is we send our inspectors out, every day we have people going out and doing inspections. They use handheld devices. They're really iPads that have an app that has an inspection module on it. And whenever our inspectors complete an inspection and hit a button that's called sync, that information comes through the inspection department over to us and will be made available to you through this landlord portal. So it won't be, exactly instantaneous, but, if an inspector clicks sync after your inspection, certainly within a day or so you would be able to see those results. And specifically what you'd be able to see is just the pass or fail through here, and you'll continue to receive all notifications about inspections and their results via either the printouts or email. All right, so down here we have transaction information specifically for this unit. So in this case, we only have our Brian test set up here, so that's the information that we see. Whenever you go into one particular unit or tenant, you'll only see that tenant. But if you're on the main landlord screen, you would see all transactions that have taken place. You can do the same kind of thing here where you can search. If you know an amount that you're looking for, a date, the tenant name, any of those things, you can search by that. All right. So here we get to some more forms. So here we have the fair market rent listing, which again you can download and see. So this is the most recent FMR listing that we have. We also have the ability for landlords to upload tenant-specific documents, and you'd have to come into that unit in order to upload those documents to us. Again, the same rules apply. You'll see that there's an upload piece here, but I can't click on it, and it's grayed out. So what I have to do is select a person to send this information to. I've chosen Shakan Cruz, and you could click Upload New, and it works just the same as the last time. You would select it and hit Submit. Now, one other piece that we have available here is the rent contribution letter. So let's say the SHC has sent out recently a rent contribution letter for this particular tenant. You would be able to view that document here. Now, I do want to draw your attention to the fact that there's no upload, no corresponding upload piece for this one. That's because this is not something that comes from landlords. That's actually something that's generated at the Supportive Housing Connection, but we would allow you to view that as soon as it's created here. So if there's ever any question, you're not sure you got it, or maybe it was sent a couple of months ago, you'll be able to log in and see that information. I also want to stress that we're using these documents as kind of a going forward at this point. So don't necessarily expect to find all the documents that you've ever submitted for a particular tenant in here now. We're kind of going to treat this as a bit of a blank slate and then use it moving forward. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about navigation through the portals. So I do not encourage you to use the back arrows. Do not use the forward and back arrows when working through the landlord portal. You'll want to use either these links up here, this View Landlord Portal Home or View Units, or these links right here. If you use the back button here, it'll take you out of the portal entirely and you'll have to log in. But as long as you use these, you can go back to View Units. And if we had other units, they would be listed here. And here we can go back to Landlord Home. And that's the home screen for this particular vendor. So I think that is about all for the landlord portal. So Jessica Barnes has been collecting the questions that you've been sending in. If you have more on specifically the landlord portal, let us know. And I also have Kathy Boland and Courtney Davey here to help answer some of these questions. So Jess, if you have any at this point.
Okay, most of the questions are for you, Katie.
Okay.
All right. Can you explain why there are payments in parentheses?
Sure. So this is actually something that shows up on our HAP statements as well. We get a lot of questions on this. If something is in parentheses, that means that the SHC has paid that amount in error and that amount is being taken back. But you'll also see that here we had a payment on 3/1 and then it was taken back, so we must have found out. I mean, this is just test data. This is not real live data. But we could conceive of a scenario where the SHC had made a number of payments for January, February, and March, and maybe we find out late that this tenant has moved out, and so these funds need to be sent back to the SHC. And the way the SHC works for payments is specifically that if we have made payments and that landlord has other tenants in our system, those amounts will be subtracted from future payments. We frequently get questions from landlords that say, it looks like from your statement that you're actually going into my account and taking that money back. And I do want to reassure everybody that that's not what happens. The SHC cannot go into anyone's account. The only thing we can do is net these amounts out of future payments.
Is this portal live, and how do we get an account?
Yes, the portal is live. It's live as of today. The account information was sent out with your invitation. So if you refer back to that, that would have had the link that you used to get in here today. That would have your HMFA number. And then the other piece of information that you need to log in is your tax ID, which hopefully you would already have.
Do landlords need to submit HAP agreements for all tenants?
We need one HAP agreement per vendor. We need an SHC addendum per tenant.
Okay, this is for either one of you at DHS. There's a 2017 FMR. Why aren't we using it?
The 2017 FMR is from HUD, and we are not HUD funded. We are funded through state appropriations, and this is the only amounts that we're allowed to use right now.
How would you alert 120 days before? Are we no longer getting packets?
At this point, everybody will still be getting packets. This is just in addition to all of the other outreach methods that you have. we don't require that people, use or submit information through this portal, but this is a pretty nice way, or, certainly we think so, we've put a lot of work into this, a really nice centralized location for everyone to come in and, download documents that might be needed and submit them when they're due. There's a huge advantage of using this, especially for the submit information piece, because you can be totally assured, everyone can be totally assured that those documents that you've sent arrive safely, securely, and are already actually properly filed away with the SHC. So I would really encourage people to use this, but yes, we will continue sending out packets so that if we have a particular vendor or tenant who prefers to fill these things out in paper, that they can still do that and submit them via all the other existing ways, via email, fax, or U.S. mail. But again, we are, we really do want people to be using this portal. I think it'll save a lot of people a lot of time.
We are both a provider and landlord. Will the login we were sent have access to both, or are they both the same portal?
Yes, and I do want to just say that we are encouraging everybody to utilize this portal, obviously. I'm sorry, Jess, what was your question again?
We are both a provider and landlord. Will the login we were sent have access to both, or are they both the same portal?
They are separate portals, so there would be a separate login for the vendor side and a separate login for the provider side.
We tried accessing the site. I get the following message, and it's a forbidden access is denied.
Okay, well, we will run that by our IT folks. We've actually had a number of providers and landlords out testing this, actually for a couple of months at this point. So we've not run into that particular one, but we will run that by our IT folks and see what the problem is.
Can you please show where to find the fair market value again?
Sure. So we had the fair market rent in the view unit side. We'll go into this particular unit, and we'll see the fair market rent listed right here for download.
Kathy. Which organization or board decides on FMR rate changes for NJHMFA?
Well, for this particular rental subsidy program, the Department of Human Services makes that decision.
If you choose to go paperless, how will you know that the unit is due for recertification? Will the system alert you in any way?
Unfortunately, there's nothing in the system that will, kind of automatically send you an email. If we could figure that out, I think that would be very attractive. At this point, there's nothing like that that's available. So, just as I said earlier, all the kind of methods that we were using before, we send out packets 120 days in advance, the processors follow up. All of those methods will remain in place, but you can also rest assured that you can, we always start collecting information 120 days prior to a tenant's recertification date. So, at about that time, you should consider starting to log in and send us a tenant's information.
Would it be possible to create only one account for all our tenants at different properties, or do we need to create a separate account for each tax ID?
If there are separate tax IDs, then unfortunately we do have them listed as separate vendors in our system. I'm sure that folks will understand that we need to, for IRS purposes, we do need to keep those entities separate in our system. So each unique tax ID will need its own login. But if that tax ID has a number of different, say, sites, or, like I was giving the example of the management company that had properties in Newark and Camden and Trenton, if that is one tax ID, then that is just one login. And we use the feature vendor sites to handle that piece.
Okay.
It shows up here.
Will the system indicate those tenants whose rent has been grandfathered in and over FMR?
We don't have any notification in the system specifically about what has been grandfathered in. The bottom line for grandfathered rents is that if the Department of Human Services submitted to us a rent that was over fair market rent, and that was the amount that they had submitted to us initially, that amount will be honored. But for all brand new tenants into the system looking for housing, the fair market rents apply.
Okay. This question is for Courtney. If we are not going fee for service as of July 1st, 2017, do we need to start using the SHC system as of 7/1 or only when we convert to fee for service and start billing Medicaid?
The division will notify the provider when they're ready to convert all of their housing to the SHC.
There's a bunch of questions about like technical issues not being able to get in.
Okay, okay. If there are a bunch of issues about not being able to log in, we will address those with our IT folks, and we'll send out a blast email with a resolution.
I don't know who this goes to, but I'm going to read it. Does this portal handle green card inspections for 3+ unit properties, or is that a different organization?
I'm not aware of that organization. The inspections that would be noted here would specifically be inspections to HUD housing quality standards that would be conducted on DMHIS units and the unlicensed units with the Division of Developmental Disabilities. Any licensed units would still be inspected by the DHS Office of Licensing, and those would not be recorded here. Those are not conducted by the Supportive Housing Connection. They're conducted by an entirely different office, and we would not have access to those records.
What if there is a rent increase higher than FMR?
If there's a rent increase that's higher than FMR or the grandfathered rent that was provided to the SHC, the tenants and landlords have a number of options. Preferably that rent could be negotiated down to the SMR, no higher than that or the grandfathered amount. The tenant would also have some choices here too. The tenant could move, or the tenant could pay the increased portion.
For providers, do we all just use one login?
Well, we will get into the provider portal in just a minute, but the same rules apply for the providers as for landlords, that there are no limits to the number of unique access logins that you can have. So, if there are, 20 people in a Newark office and 30 people in a Trenton office, as long as there is a unique email address, then each person can have their own login. You don't have to create one per company and then share that with everybody. Everyone can create their own.
How is the intention to lease form going to be handled? Will it be on this portal?
We would treat that as the lease, and that's where that could be uploaded. And just to remind folks, I think we have that here in the units, and we have the lease. So again, if you wanted to submit a lease or the intention to lease form, you have to choose a person, and you would upload it here just like the other document.
Once the inspection information is working, will you need to go into a specific consumer to see what is scheduled, or will we be able to see all inspections that are coming due for all consumers?
You have to check the tenant in particular, because this is on the this particular module, this inspection module is unique to that tenant. So you'd have to check that unit to see when that tenant's inspection is coming, and as well as the results after it happens. But again, all the same notification methods remain in place. There will be, for inspections in particular, we'll still be mailing out information about inspections. We'll be emailing providers, and if an inspection fails, we send out the fail notice. So all of those remain the same. This is just an additional source of information for you.
I was just looking at my residence excuse me, and there are no documents. I know I have recently submitted documents, so will this be going forward?
Yes. The point of this portal at this point is to use it going forward. So you should be able to see the items that you have uploaded. There may be some other things in there that you can view, but we can't guarantee that. For sure, you'll be able to view what you have submitted through the portal.
If we cannot find our login, where do we go find it?
Again, that would have come with the notice that you received. So in theory, if you were able to log in here today, you should also have that email. We can see if we can go back and send another reminder email with that information. But for the landlord portal, that would include your unique ID. And again, that's sent out with every payment run. So, you know, if 2 months from now you forget what your ID was, you know, the next payment, when you get the next payment run, you'll have that ID, and then you also have your tax ID. You know, hopefully you just have that so you'd be able to log in. But yes, we can send out a reminder as well, but you know, we'll be doing a payment run for the 15th, so it will be coming then in any case.
Could this portal be used to find new potential tenants for SHC properties, or maybe as a possible future feature request?
New potential properties. Well, this portal only works at this point for landlords that have accounts with the SHC. So it's not like this is a database of all landlords that could potentially list a tenant. That's actually something closer to the New Jersey Housing Resource Center, that has a listing of available units. You know, this is really intended to be very specific and available only to the vendors that are currently working with the Supportive Housing Connection. So it's really not meant as a database of future opportunities as much as it is, you know, here's a way to check in on the units that you already have with the SHC.
Would we be able to request an inspection or re-inspection?
Certainly, you can always request an inspection, but not through this portal. So we have an entity that does the inspection scheduling for us. They're called Gilson Software Solutions. You can get in touch with them. You can also get in touch with us if you don't have their contact information, and we can help you set one up.
For the notify staff member feature, is it possible to notify a group of staff members instead of a specific person?
No, this is set up to that we can only select one person.
That's it. I think I can answer the rest.
Okay. All right, great. So with that, we will be moving on to the provider portal. And we'll do another round of Q&A after the provider portal, just in case there are any questions specific to that portal. So this works. You'll notice that there are a lot of similarities here between the landlord and the provider portal. Again, when you first come to the portal, you will want to go to the new user registration screen. So here you'll want to enter in the provider number, and this would be a number that was provided to you with the invitation to this webinar. And you'll need to enter in your provider name. So this is actually a really important point here, that you'll need to enter in the provider name exactly as it appears from the SHC. So that that email or that letter that you got from the SHC that listed what name we have for you, it has to be entered in exactly here. So let's say we had an organization that was called Test Provider, LLC. You would need to type in Test Provider, LLC. Now, if we had it listed L period, you know, with periods here, you would have to do the same. So I just wanted to make a note that it has to be exactly what we have. And the reason we do that is for security purposes, that we needed to come up with some way to have it such that not anybody could come in and get this information, and these were the security features that we're using. So then you'll enter in your email address, and you'll retype that email address. And again, you can have as many logins as you do unique email addresses. So you're not limited to just one login per provider organization. You'll then need to type in a password, and just like on the landlord side, you'll get this little pop-up with information that you need to use in order to create a kind of secure password. It has to be 8 characters in length, using uppercase and lowercase letters as well as numbers. And then you'll need to retype that password and click register. So here I'm going to click cancel because I've created a test provider to use for this purpose. So I'm going to log in with my test information. This needs to be an email here. And my password. And here I could click login, but if I have forgotten my password or I'm unable to log in, this is something that's really important to remember. You'll need to enter in your provider number and your email address, and then click this link. If either of those 2 fields are missing and you click the forgot password button, the system won't know who this is supposed to go to. So just a friendly reminder to please fill in both of those fields before you hit forgot password. But in this case, I'm just going to log in. Okay, so this is the provider portal home area. There are some instructions that we have up at the top. And here you'll notice that we have some information. We have the provider name, and again, this was our test provider. We have the assigned staff, so I have Aisha Fredericks listed here. So when you log in, you'll see, whoever it is that has been assigned to you. So if there's ever any question of, oh gosh, I forget who I should be working with or who I need to contact, if you log in here, you'll see who your assigned staff person is, and you'll have their contact information. You'll also see that we have some transaction history. So if we were to make a payment to this provider agency, you'd be able to see that here. Over here, we have the selected site contacts. So let's say this were a large organization. There might be many contacts that we have listed in here. And you'll see the information that we have, the email address that we have there, as well as the phone number that we have on file. We also have a listing of tenants. So if a provider organization had many tenants, they would all show up here. But in this case, we only have our Brian test. So I will click this one. And here you see some information about this particular tenant. You've got a tenant number, tenant name, the unit number, the monthly rent that we have on file, the day the rent is due, as well as the emergency contact that we have on file, and the unit address. If you hover your mouse over this little address icon, you'll see a little bit more information. And as we go down, you'll see information about inspections. So again, this is information that is kind of coming soon, but it will include scheduled and then any results. So if it passed, if it failed, you'll see that. What you won't see is if it failed, you won't see the reasons why it failed. But that goes out in the reports that we will continue to send. But if you need a quick reference as to what happened, you'll see that here. Just as in the other screen, there are a number of transactions that are listed here. If there were multiple tenants, if we'd had multiple tenants set up, you'd be able to see, or actually we're just in this one particular tenant. So you can see all the transactions that have been made to test landlord for this particular tenant here. You could search, so let's say a tenant moved and you want to make sure that the transactions are correct, and you could search by the old vendor's name just to make sure that those payments went out correctly. Now again, my favorite part are these forms that we now have available. So here we have all of our kind of standard forms. We have a tenant's information form, the DDD rental subsidy agreement, as well as the DMHAS consumer agreement, the DMHAS rental subsidy policy, the fair market rent listings, and unit ID forms for both new and moving tenants. And you can download any of these. and they have been made fillable as well. So that is for hopefully your convenience, that you can go in and start, filling in this information. Now, again, this is a form that does need to be signed, so you will still need to, you can type in everything else. You can print the tenant name, but you will need to print this out to get the signature and date it, and then scan it back in the system for us. But, at least now these forms will be available to you. Okay, so that's the forms that are available. Again, as we were discussing on the landlord side, we will continue to send out all the same notifications that we were using before. The only difference is that you now have an additional resource at your disposal. Now, let's say you want to submit information to us. The same rule applies on the provider side as on the landlord side. So you still have to select somebody to send this to, because right now we don't have anybody selected, and you'll notice that I can't upload anything. I would click here, and it's just not available. So as soon as I choose a person, again, we'll choose Shakan Cruz. Sorry, Shakan, she's going to get a lot of emails. Here you can upload things individually. So let's say you have just income. Maybe that's all it was missing. You have a lease or the intention to lease form. You can upload any of those. You can upload any of those here. We also have the ability for people to submit complete packets. So if you prefer to, and actually we prefer to accept complete packets, you put everything together and upload it once instead of breaking it down into its component parts. That works just fine. I also want to emphasize here that we do have some move information up here, but any moves must be approved by the Department of Human Services. All right, we also have a space here for rent contribution letters. So again, you might not see those in the system kind of going back in time, but you should start to see those moving forward. So let's say you have a question about a rent contribution letter that was that is generated soon. You could actually log in here and view that. The upload piece works just the same way it did for the landlord side. So let's say I have a complete packet for a new tenant that I want to upload. I can click this Upload New button here. I hit this select item to go find that document on my computer. Again, I'm going to use this test for upload and hit open. And you'll see that it came through because we've got this little green dot here and this test for upload, but we're not done yet because I have to hit submit right here. And you'll see it thinks for a little bit. This little button, little scrolling thing means it's thinking. And then you'll see this this notification that will pop up. Document upload successful. This is really important. Again, we get a lot of questions on the provider side also that say, I sent this in, but I'm not clear if the SHC received it. If you get this pop-up, that means it has been successfully submitted and logged into our system. So here I'm going to click OK. And let's say you want to just be totally sure that that document has reached the SHC. You can do that with this Download Most Recent button. So I'm going to click that because I want to verify. I want to make sure that this got into the SHC. And you can open it up, and we see that this is the test for upload, which is exactly what I intended to send here. So I think that gets to most of the important points for the providers. I do just want to draw your attention to how to navigate back to the provider home. So let's say you've done everything you needed to do for this tenant and you want to move on to a new tenant. Do not use the navigation buttons up here, these back buttons. If you do, it will take you out of the portal. I've certainly done that plenty of times myself. What you'll want to do is actually use either this button here, this provider portal home, or this provider home button right here. Either one will take you back to your provider home, and you could select a different tenant and see similar information about that tenant. So with that, I think we'll turn it back to Jess with any questions that have come in.
Okay. Is it required to download documents for someone that was approved a few months ago for this program?
That's a bit hard to answer without knowing the particular case. What I can say is that if documents are outstanding and still need to be submitted, then this would definitely be a place that you could go to get those kind of approved documents. You know, you could fill them out and submit them here.
Will it show when an inspection is scheduled prior to the inspection happening?
Yes. So again, this piece is not up to date yet, but once it's working, it will show inspections that are scheduled so that they're upcoming. It will show any inspections that have been completed. And again, this works the same way with our inspectors, that they go out with tablets and electronically complete these inspections. And as soon as they hit sync, you know, give it 5-10 minutes or something like that, that information would be uploaded, updated in this system.
Will it be possible to get a copy of questions and answers for those who missed this webinar?
What we'll be doing is we're actually recording this webinar as we speak. So what we'll be doing is sending out a link to this webinar to all of the invitees. So, you know, if anybody, you know, maybe they wanted to attend but couldn't make it, they will get a link to this webinar and will be able to tune in to any portion of it that they find relevant, including the Q&A.
In the provider portal, why do some active clients not have property on the home page? There's more to it. If you click on them, it looks like they do have property, but on the home page, it is not there. Also, is there any way to just look at active clients and not discharged clients?
Okay, so for the first screen about properties, again, it's a little hard to answer without having a specific case. Certainly, we do have some tenants that are in single-family homes. So if a tenant's in a single-family home, they wouldn't have a property. But we don't list the actual address on the screen, on the provider home screen. We just have the tenant name. And that takes you into each one where you can see the particular unit address. So I'm not sure if that was getting more, that question was geared more towards the tenant's address or the actual property information. But either way, you do have to go into that tenant in order to get the unit information. Was there a second part of that question, Jess?
Is there any way to just look at active clients and not discharged clients?
Unfortunately, no. We have, right now in our system, we keep a record of all tenants. There are some tenants that may have left the system that may be back. So we don't have the ability to sort through that, but there is an ability to search for any tenant that you're looking for. So again, we only have our Brian test here, but if you were looking for somebody named Susie, you could type that name in, hit enter, and you'd be brought to Susie's file. So you definitely don't have to search through everyone to find the tenant that you're looking for. If you have their name, first name, their last name, anything like that, you can get their information quickly.
What's the difference between provider portal and landlord portal?
The difference is the audience. The landlord portal is specifically for vendors or landlords, you know, and the provider portal is for social service provider agencies or support coordinators who are assisting tenants in, you know, finding housing with their daily needs, things like that.
Can consumers submit their packets by mail or fax?
Absolutely. All the same methods of document submission remain the same. Somebody can email them in, they can fax them in, they can mail them through US mail. This is just an additional resource for providers who are working with tenants to submit documents quickly and securely. We really are encouraging providers to utilize this method because there's absolutely no question that a document has been sent and received. You can see it in real time. And those documents are filed in our actual system, like the actual system that we are audited on. So it goes right in and it's slotted in the right place. So it's really just a really good bet all around, a really good resource for all of us to be using.
Okay. The second part of that question was, if they send it by mail or fax, how will they know if their information has been received? So you pretty much answered that. I have a landlord login. Where do I find the provider login?
Again, that would have come out with the invitation to this webinar, but we can send it out as a reminder, maybe with the link to this presentation.
I'm not sure if we answered this already. Will recert packets still be mailed?
Yes. So all of the same notification methods for recertifications, for inspections, for all of that will remain the same. This is just an additional resource that's available to, this particular portal is for the providers, but the landlord portal as well. These are just additional resources in addition to all of the other methods of communication that we already have set up.
All approved and already receiving vouchers. So this portal is only for new clients?
This portal is for any tenant that's in our system. It would include new tenants, certainly, but a tenant that has been in our system for quite some time would certainly be listed here. I'm not sure if this is in regards to the DDD or DMHAS folks, but we do have a number of DDD tenants, Division of Developmental Disabilities tenants, who are coming over to us now. Those tenants will only be visible as we load them up in our system, so that will be a bit of a delay. And certainly there are a number of tenants that haven't been sent over to us at all yet. So, I defer to Courtney a little bit with how the DDD rollout is going to go. But for a tenant that the SHC has been serving, they should be listed in this system.
Do we reach out to our assigned staff contact to create a profile for a brand new tenant?
No, all tenant referrals will continue to be made through the Department of Human Services. I think that's really important to stress here, that the Supportive Housing Connection makes no decisions about what tenants to serve or not serve. So it's not about reaching out to us to create a tenant profile. If you see that a tenant's not listed here, the SHC is very likely not serving them at this time. My recommendation would be to talk with the Department of Human Services and get approval for that tenant, and then the Department of Human Services sends a referral to the Supportive Housing Connection, and we send out a welcome packet. So that's how that tenant referral piece works.
Can you explain what the interim packet is used for?
What the which packet?
Interim?
Interim packet, yes. So usually that's used if there's a change in income at a time when it is not time for recertification. So if at any time a tenant's income changes by $100, goes up by $100, goes down by $100, that tenant is supposed to submit information about their income to us. So we would require, 4 recent pay stubs, or, if they went on disability, off disability, any of those types of things, we'd need to see an award letter or information about their income, and usually that's what we use for the interim packet.
Will warning of termination letters be available on the portal?
I don't think we have, let me check in here. I don't think we have those, but we could make those available. Oh, here, we do have them available. We have, I'm sorry, the termination letter and the warning letter. So yes, moving forward, those should be available here. If they've been sent, you'll be able to see them. And again, you'd have to go into each tenant in order to view that information. So it's not like we have one big repository where you could see all the warning letters or terminations that have been sent. You'd have to go into each tenant.
If documents get faxed or emailed, will they get uploaded into this system?
Yes. But again, the way to be totally sure that you have submitted information is to upload them here, and then you can view it yourself. There's just no question of, was the attachment too large and so it didn't make it to us? Did it get lost in the mail? Did you fax it and did it go to the right place? We really want to encourage people to utilize these portals, because there's just absolutely no question from your end as a provider or a landlord, and then from the SHC side that document was submitted. We can see when it was submitted, and it's a secure method as well.
Okay, this is for DHS. Will the assistance provided to the consumer to upload their information fall under reimbursement for CSS?
That's a very good question, and I'm sure that Harry Reyes would tell you that it is covered under the fees that you're going to be getting now.
Can we use the provider portal for other NJHMFA finance properties?
The provider portal and the landlord portal right now are only available for the SHC program in particular. I can't make any comment about how this resource may or may not be used for other programs, but at this time, it's only utilized for the SHC.
How do we know who the assigned staff is for each tenant? Which staff member do we click to submit the documents to? Okay,
that's a good question. So I'm going to navigate back to provider home. So we have assigned our staff based on provider. So especially if that was a provider asking the question, if you're wondering who your assigned staff person is, this will tell you very clearly. We have Aisha in here, but please don't everybody email Aisha. It will list the actual assigned staff person here, and that's the person that you should choose for everything that you upload. For landlords, it can vary. Let's say you're a landlord and you have tenants in your property from a number of different provider agencies, that you would have to refer to the packets that we send out, and we tell you who that information needs to go to, which is essentially their assigned processor. So you would need to choose that person, as referenced on the letter when you send in documents.
Does the SHC need the okay of DHS to send warning of termination letters?
For anything other than receipt of documents, the SHC can send, if we have not received documents, we can send warning letters only, not termination. For all other types of warning letters, the Department of Human Services must give us an actual directive to send those letters, and in no cases will the SHC be sending termination letters without a directive from the Department of Human Services.
Why is the HAP agreement for all of our consumers on the landlord portal for the same consumer when I look at the most recent download?
I'm not sure I quite understand. It sounds like somebody's in the landlord portal and they're seeing a HAP for one tenant. Again, my best advice is to use this going forward. That would be something that maybe, if you want to give the SHC a call, we can look into kind of specific things at that time. Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody. We will, again, based on some of the questions that we got, we will be looking into some of the IT issues. It sounds, based on the questions, that some folks were able to get in and maybe some were not. So we'll look into any issues that may have happened with the link that was sent out. We'll be sending out a link to the recorded webinar that we've just conducted here, as well as reminder information about your login. So thank you very much, everybody.